Welcome. I'm Alexandria Perry, and I'm here today to talk to you about the mindful tutor in you. So I want to say first off, thank you for what you do as tutors. Helping other people with their writing is just a noble act of generosity. So I hope you realize how important and how special you are in the work that you do. We appreciate you very, very much. So today's talk to you, and thank you for spending your time with me, I'm going to present ideas on mindful writing intended to first and foremostly help you with your own writing. It's how to become more mindful to yourself as a writer. And then part two, how to become more mindful as a tutor as you help other people with their writing. So there'll be some conversation and discussion. I'll be presenting in a few seconds, actually, some of the main ideas behind mindful writing. And there'll be quite a few writing activities, some of them taking as little as 5 minutes, and some of them taking a little bit longer, 12 to 15 minutes. So you might want to use this talk over several days. It's organized so that the first half focuses on you as a writer, how to become more present to yourself in your writing. And then, as I said, with the second half, turning to you as a writing tutor. I'll ring a bell, these little tiny potent Buddhist meditation bells, which I just did by accident, whenever we're about to start a writing activity. So paper and pen, as you can probably guess, will be needed, okay? All right, so let's start first with just some basic tenets of mindfulness and mindful writing. All right, so what's mindfulness? Mindfulness has been routinely defined as the detached, non-judgmental observation of the ever-changing present moment. The detached, non-judgmental observation of the ever-present changing moment. And so what's mindful writing? So mindful writing combines watching the present moment with that detached, non-evaluative mindset with the act of writing. Why would somebody want to try mindful writing? So first off, I want to say to you that mindfulness, that ability to stay present aware, to be here and to be now, it's not our natural human disposition. In fact, the human default position is mindlessness, the avoidance, the ignoring of the present moment. And it's actually been clocked by scientists. Some people have discovered that, roughly speaking here, the average human ability to pay attention to any present stretch of time lasts only between 8 and 12 seconds. So mindlessness is really our human default situation. That's our setting. We mindlessly brush our teeth, mindlessly go to school, mindlessly teach, mindlessly eat, mindlessly cross the room, mindlessly pet our cat, mindlessly answer the phone, or mindlessly text message. So all these activities that we do throughout our day mindlessly, it's no surprise that we also approach writing with mindlessness, right? And actually, I would say that the way in which school teaches us how to write actually exasperates that problem, makes us even more unaware of the present moment. We're routinely taught to think of future and past factors when we write, and really not taught to ground ourselves in the here and now as we write. So mindlessness is our default position. So it takes some work to get out of that situation, but the work is really worthwhile. Here's some problems that arise for anybody trying to write from mindlessness: not having anything to say, not knowing how to start, not knowing how to continue, dreading writing, procrastinating, putting off. These are all signs of actual mindlessness, that ignoring of the present moment. Now, conversely, when we pay attention to the present moment, a whole new set of resources arises for us when we write. And so what are some of those resources? I'm going to try to share a screen with you, so just bear with me for a sec. It actually took more than a sec, but okay. So here's the screen I wanted to show you. So what are those tools that arise when we're more present aware while we write? These are powerful tools, again, that are not often talked about in school, but that can change how we approach our own writing and how we help other people with their writing. The first is internal talk. We gain access to our constant internal conversation, what Buddhists call monkey mind. Isn't that a great picturesque way of saying that? The ongoing babble going through our head. In writing classes, we often talk about interpersonal rhetoric, right? We often talk about interpersonal rhetoric, using language to convince other people, persuade other people of things, right? Well, we very seldom, or if ever, talk about intrapersonal rhetoric. What's intrapersonal rhetoric? The language we're constantly using on ourselves. I'm using language on myself right now. You're using language on yourself right now. Anybody in the room with you is doing the same thing. We're just usually mindless and unaware of it. So what's the deal with this internal language as a tool? It's two-faced. On the one hand, it's a powerful resource because it provides constant access to language. There's always something to write if we can only perceive that self-talk in the moment and perceive it without judging it, evaluating it prematurely, fixing it. So that's a good thing, right? There's always language to work with. However, you probably knew there was a however coming. However, there's a flip side to our internal talk, which is as follows. It actually is a hindrance to our writing success because on top of providing constant language, this river of language going through us, potential content for our pieces of writing, it's actually a powerful form of self-pathos. What do I mean by that? Okay, self-pathos is the language we use on ourselves to convince ourselves of certain moods, feelings, moving our own feelings, not others, but our own feelings inwardly, and our outlook. And they also, along with those bits of language that affect our mood, they also, this river of language also conveys preconceptions. And preconceptions are gambles on the next moment. We act as though we know what's about to happen. And in a writing context, right, we act that way, I gotta say. And what we're doing is we're foreclosing on the moment. We're really shortchanging of ourselves of a host of possibilities of what could unfold in the endlessly personally and writing-wise inventive present moment. So preconceptions take two forms here. One is task-specific, and here I'm talking about writing preconceptions, not preconceptions about friends or people you meet, but writing preconceptions. We have specific feelings and attitudes about the task at hand, the immediate task, the assignment at hand, the piece we're working on, this poem, this report, right? Or it could be something overall, more general. I'm really bad at writing sonnets or poems, or I can't write a good introduction, or it could be the opposite. I really do a great job at writing thesis statements. So in general. All right, so this is one thing we're going to watch, a tool that arises, a tool we have to be mindful and aware of because it also comes with some problems, and that's that constant internal talk. And we'll be doing quite a bit with that today during our session. The second one is audience proximity. With a mindfulness perspective, we realize that when we're thinking about a reader, they're a fabrication of our self-talk, our mental formations. There's actually no reader or audience or teacher, maybe in your case, in the room with you when you're home writing. There's a wonderful vacancy to the present moment. And even if you're taking a test in a room with a teacher who will be reading something, an essay exam in 5 minutes, he or she still doesn't have access to the writing that arises for you in the moment in your head. You still have that wonderful privacy. And so mindfulness helps us realize when we are actually playing host to what I call audience ghosts or reader demons. They're actually not in the room with us as we write, although we act as though they are, and they cause us to feel nervous or correct while we write. The next tool that arises is impermanence. We won't have time to talk about that today, but or during our session, our keynote here, but I just wanted to mention to you that from a mindfulness perspective on writing, you realize that everything is in flux. And this is fantastic because if you're having a bad or stilted moment with your writing, or you doubt yourself, if you watch mindfully enough, in a few minutes, everything changes and flips. And conversely, if you have a really great patch, you know that it's going to also change. But change is a writer's friend, ally. It's actually not a threat. It's wonderful. So, and the last one here, again, I'm mentioning this to you, but we won't have time to work with it per se, but I do recommend thinking about this. The fourth tool that comes up from our mindful toolkit is our writing bodies. We become more aware of our physical selves, our whole beings as we write. And that's really important because it's part of our present reality. And if we're not noticing our human form, our physical form right now, we're actually erasing part of the present moment. And breathing is probably the most important aspect of mindfulness and mindful writing, in part because you don't breathe in the future, you don't breathe in the past. You breathe right here and now. And no one needs to know that you're kind of practicing mindfulness by breathing. It's a free, constantly with you, highly portable tool for mindfulness. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. So I just went through some of the key tenets of mindful writing, right? Some of the key tenets. And I'd like to walk us through our first activity. And for this one, I'm going to do it along with you. The other ones, I'm going to stop the clock, so to speak, and let you go ahead and do it. This is going to be called the mind list, like a grocery list, except it's the mind, from the mind. I'm going to ring, again, these tiny but potent little meditation bells. Very potent, very loud, even though small, in a second here. And here's what I would like you to do. Have a piece of paper and a pen nearby. And I'm going to walk you through a breathing technique. Then, if you find yourself no longer focusing on your breathing during the activity, which is really normal, please don't worry. I mean, it happens to all of us. It's going to happen to me like crazy, okay? If you find yourself not physically watching your breathing, ask yourself, what am I doing? I'm not paying attention to my inhalation and my exhalation like this lady told me to do. So what exactly am I doing? Okay. Look in your mind and say, what was I doing? And if you find yourself thinking of the future, like what you're going to do after this video, or later today, or next week, or a month from now, or 10 years from now, okay? Please write down on a scrap of paper just 3 letters, F-U-T. F-U-T, short for FUT, future, okay? Then, just go back to watching your breathing. Without judging yourself, just go back to watching the breathing. However, if you find yourself not paying attention to the present moment, again, not paying attention to your breathing, and you think about something from the past, maybe 5 minutes ago, or last week, or 2 years ago, or a month ago, whatever's the past, please open your eyes, and on your notepad, write PAS. Don't write down what you were daydreaming or thinking about, not the content, but just the word PAS to say it was a past-based thought. Put down the pen or pencil without judging yourself and go back to watching the breathing again. Third category of mental formations. If you find yourself not watching your breathing, and you're judging something like, oh, this is interesting, or this is boring, or I don't know, or I hate that, or why'd she say that, or why am I thinking that? Anything that's judgmental, or I like his shoes, or that light's awfully bright, whatever it is, okay? Open your eyes, and on your pad, write your notebook, write eval, E-V-A-L, for evaluation. Don't even write down what you were thinking, what you were judging. And then just gently go back to watching your breathing. Okay, everybody got it? So that's the mind list. So paper and a pen or pencil, and I'm gonna do this with you. And we'll probably do this for about 2 minutes tops, okay? So here goes. Okay, so, you know, I'm going to be doing this on a screen in front of you, so you may see me close my eyes, I may not. You may want to close your eyes if you're doing this in the classroom, whatever you feel comfortable. So sitting in your chair, a straight posture, back not against the back of the chair, as though somebody has a piece of twine or something, and they're just very gently holding you upright. Maybe your hands are cupping your knees, or maybe they're up like this, but hands on the knees. Just get a sense of how your day's been so far, where you feel it in your body. Now, as promised, bring your attention completely to the act of breathing, your inhalation and your exhalation. And as you breathe in, noticing the temperature come through the nose or the mouth, the way in which it affects your torso, your ribs expanding, whatever's going on. Think to yourself, here. And as you exhale, again, watching the physical sensations of exhaling, think to yourself, now, here, now. And we're going to do this, again, for about 2 minutes. Keep your mind on your breathing. And if you find yourself doing something else, ask yourself what it was. Was it future, past, or eval type thinking? Record it on your little list and go back to watching the breathing. Okay, if we were together, I'd have you read your list to me. And if you want to pause the tape right now and just read your list to everybody else, not what you were thinking, but what's on your list. Here's mine. Fut, fut, eval, 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 fut. Now, you can imagine, as somebody who's leading a session on Zoom that other people will be seeing in, maybe a month, 2 months from now, I'm having a host of future-based thoughts, and also I'm judging myself, right? It's pretty natural. So what was on your list? Maybe you want to pause and just read the list to everybody else. Okay, so I bet you that everybody who's trying the mind list is jotting something down. Otherwise, we've got some Buddhas in the room, okay? So what's the deal here? If you wrote anything down on your list, you were mindful. Why would I say that? Why would I say that? Sometimes people say, well, what's this mindfulness thing? Professor Perry, Alex, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. I'm here, you're here. What do you mean that we're not present? Even though I can see you, we're listening to each other. Well, here's the deal. This activity gave you a visceral firsthand experience of mindfulness, because when were you mindful? The moment you thought, wait a minute, I'm not watching my breathing, I'm not watching my inhalation, my exhalation, but rather I'm what? Thinking of the past, thinking of the future, evaluating. You were mindful. You saw your mental formation arise, and rather than what we normally do when we're mindless, which is chase after those mental formations in kind of a knee-jerk fashion, without realizing it blindly, you were aware, you were mindful. So good for you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next activity. I'm going to explain it, and then I'll ring the bell, and I do recommend that you stop the tape. And I think you should do this for approximately, I would say maybe five minutes, okay? I also highly recommend that you do the next activity as private writing. In other words, try not to share it with another person. Know in advance that this will be strictly for you, all right? Private writing is really important to developing a healthy relationship with our monkey minds in our internal language. It's a crucial device to gain some distance from non-present readers too. Okay, so here goes. Oftentimes in my class, I say the following to students. I say, dig out some paper, screens, whatever we're working on, watch your breath. They do the inhalation, exhalation thing. And I said, just watch what arises when I say this next thing to you, okay? And without judging, you just jot down. Notice the physical sensations, what are called mind waves, and also any images, preconceptions, storylines, which are called mind weeds, like a dandelion, okay? And so what I say to them after they've watched the breath, and this is not typically in a creative writing class, always never actually, I'll say, we're all gonna write a poem. And I see these expressions around the room like, oh man, or oh God, great, I love it. And so they're writing down, like, write down what just went through your body and your mind. My point is this: I picked poetry because people have a very loaded relationship with that particular genre. They love it, they hate it, they doubt themselves, they think pretty highly, they can do it. All right, so it jumpstarts, when people think they're about to write a poem, it jumpstarts all kinds of monkey mind and self-talk, and by writing it down, it becomes visible. And then of course what we do is we do a poem, we build a poem with prompts within about 4 minutes, and oftentimes people are stunned by what they created, because being aware of the moment without judgment and biases and preconceptions, they were able to unfold it and create something that they had no idea 20 minutes earlier they would ever create, which is all what mindful writing is about, this endlessly inventive possibility. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do, we're not doing poems. I bet you were excited, some of you, right? But we're not doing poems. We're going to do something else. I would like you to do a private, mindful free write. And I know you probably all know what a free write is. That's that non-stop writing activity where you write down either to a question or just an open following of the mind, whatever arises, without correcting, worrying about grammar, organization. Free writing is wonderful. It's the ultimate device for capturing monkey mind and gaining distance from non-present audiences in the moment. Okay, but we're going to do mindful free writing. What's that? As you free write, please also try to observe your breathing as though you're meditating. So free writing, and there will be a topic, also try to just notice the inhalation and the exhalation. And you may find that it slows down your handwriting, your typing, which is a good thing. You may also find that breathing itself becomes part of the content of your free write, like what you're writing about. That's also natural and a good thing. Okay, so here goes. That's mindful free writing. So I'm going to say something to you, and I'd like you to, after I ring the bell, I'd like you to start mindfully private free writing for about 2 minutes. Stop the tape and resume it and come back. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Well, first off, just watch the breathing for a moment. Calm and be here, be now. You are already perfect. You are already perfect as a writer, as a student. There's nothing about you, nothing that needs to change or improve. You are already perfect. What arises for you with that thought? Okay, hopefully you stopped the tape. Let's go on to our next mindful writing activity. So the last one was the already perfect meditation. And why did we do it? It's to jumpstart our inner talk, our monkey minds, and get a sense of exactly how we speak to ourselves, especially about perfectionism. So many of us lug around what I call a stone backpack of perfectionism about our writing, about who we are. It's heavy. It's really heavy. So many expectations of ourselves. And by doing the already perfect meditation, you notice your self-pathos, your own rhetoric. How are you talking to yourself? And maybe, just possibly, and this would be ideal, you gain a tiny bit of freedom just for a nanosecond, maybe a little longer, from that relentless drive to change yourself. A little engine in us that's always doing that. And if you have a freedom for that, even for a second or a half a minute or longer, there's a real openness to possibility and to yourself that arises that can just be so much more energizing than that constant little engine of perfectionism. Okay. So here's our third activity. It's called working with preconceptions. And we'll tie this in the second video when we're talking about your tutoring experiences to tutoring. But right now it's about you as a writer. Okay. I'm going to say a few statements to you, and in a private writing, whether you want to do a free write or you just want to jot down in a list format, whatever arises for you. I'd like you to think about, what is your mind telling you will happen? Because remember, preconceptions are gambles we make on the next moment. We act as though we know what's about to happen, and oftentimes we're pretty harsh on ourselves, and we judge things, foreclosing possibility, right? So preconceptions are major forms of mindlessness because you're really giving up the present moment for a best guess, and it's often a stressful, shortchanges us again. Okay, so when I say these things to you, what is your mind telling you will happen? What's your mind acting as though it's already happened? How are you hopscotching into the future, into mindlessness? What sorts of images are passing through your mind. They're called mind waves or mind weeds. So mind waves or mind weeds, something fleeting or something more substantial as an image. Okay, ready? When you think of a current homework assignment or a personal piece of writing you're working on right now, what's your mind telling you will happen the next time you return to that document? What sorts of images are passing through your mind? Okay. Think of a writing assignment, homework or personal writing, that you know is going to happen in the next few weeks. Same question. Think about it. What does your mind see already happening about that assignment? End of the year. So for me, May, probably June, you guys, right? End of the year, finals week, work you're going to have to do, writing work. What comes to mind in terms of what do you see happening? What images pass through your mind? Next year, so if you're a freshman, sophomore year, you're junior, senior year, that kind of thing. Next year, when you think of writing next year, what images come through your mind? What do you think is already going to happen? And then in college, you're in college. When you think about writing, what do you think is going to happen? Okay. So please pick the preconception on your list that has the most energy for you. Maybe it's not it could be a negative energy. You're like, oh, you really told yourself something, a strong message. It could be positive, by the way, too. So as a writer, I often have preconceptions about how long something will take to do, or how successful a particular document will be or not successful. But it could be positive, right? All right, everybody got one? Okay, now what I'm going to ask you to do, and I would say please pause the tape, okay, pause the video after I tell you what we're up to here. Pick that one, and we're going to build what's called a storyline. What's a storyline? In a mindfulness sense, that's an elaborate daydream, usually negative, a fantasy, springs to our minds, right? From a preconception. We see a whole story, a scenario in our head, but it's all a fabrication, a daydream, a fantasy. If you drive a car already, you know what that's like. You're driving down the highway and you think, oh my word, I didn't see the last 4 exits because I was thinking about, what happened in bio class yesterday, right? So that kind of thing. So pick one of your preconceptions, and I'm going to ask you to do the following. In a private, mindful free write, picking that preconception. If you let yourself mindlessly follow whatever message that preconception was saying to you, how might it make you feel the moment you were working on that project? How might it make you feel the moment you're working on that project? Then ask yourself, how might it affect the choices I make in my writing process? Back again. So if you stop the tape to do that last part, you can get a sense, just a little sense of the beginning of a storyline, because you'll notice it will affect your mood. Whatever preconception you were hosting is going to affect your outlook, your disposition towards that writing. And it also, tandem here, is going to affect the choices you make in the writing process, possibly causing procrastination or a certain way of approaching drafting or writing or feedback, any of that, from the messages you're telling yourself. And you can build your storyline out to think about how it might affect you if you kept going a week after the event, even 6 months, a year in the long term. Because that's the thing about preconceptions. They may arise about the next moment and seem fleeting, but they gather, they accrue, and we build these big storylines about our own abilities and who we are as writers, as students, and we carry them into the future, sometimes, often, to no good, okay? Just because, again, it's closing down what's possible. So if you're watching this video as part of a class or with your fellow tutors, you might want to pause again now and just discuss so far your experiences with these mindful writing techniques. And if you feel so inclined to share. Otherwise, we're going to head into the fourth and final activity of this part of the video before we move on to the video about you as a tutor. Okay. This activity is called Summoning Your Reader Ghosts. Okay, what's a reader ghost? I spoke a little bit about this at the very beginning, right? When we write, we frequently act as though we're public speaking, like I'm doing right now. Although you and I are not sharing, because of technology, the same space and time. You're not in my house with me, and also, it's 2-something p.m. on, I think, January 25th. You're watching this at a different time, 2021. But normally with public speaking, right, you can't, and I can't, stop what's going on and pull out words that I've said that I don't care for and retract them and fix them, et cetera, right? We often treat writing as though it's public speaking, like we have no chance to revise, change. We just shut down the wonderful liberties that the openness, the privacy, the present moment of writing gives us. And why do we do that? Because we're behaving as though the reader we anticipate for our document can somehow perceive, they're coming from the future, and they can somehow perceive what we're writing in this moment. But they don't exist. They're a creature of our self-talk, right? So, and if you're curious about that, I have a TEDx talk on my own personal battles with reader demons. So check it out if you want to, and it's mentioned at the very end of the presentation, right? But we bring these creatures from the future, and the problem with them is that those reader demons or audience ghosts, because they are ghosts, they're not in the room with you as you write, they are creatures from the future. And because they're creatures from the future, they're not interested in your rough drafts or your free writes or your messy explorations. They're here for that final product, and you can't hand it over because, it's not fair. You haven't had time to write your final draft. So you sit there and you delete, or you backspace, or people procrastinate, or they mix editing with early composing because they're afraid of a negative reaction, a criticism from this non-existent person. So we're going to do something with the next activity. I'll walk you through it. That's going to have you noticing an audience ghost. Okay, so let me share a screen with you, please. Okay, hopefully you can see the summoning your reader demon. Try not to look at the prompts. I have them up there so people, if they fall a little behind, they can see them, but I'm going to read them to you. All right, so try not to look. All right, here goes. What we're going to do is we're going to develop a caricature of someone, probably a composite person to be honest with you, but someone who's bothered your writing in the past, okay? So on a piece of paper, pen, you got it there, I would like you to think of a time in which you had to write something and it wasn't coming easy to you. It wasn't coming easy to you. You struggled. Maybe you procrastinated. Maybe you delayed. You were struggling. All right. So You visualize someone having a judgment or an opinion about your piece of writing. And this person appears in your room. Please take notes. What does this person's face look like? And because we're kind of doing a caricature, you know, like you might pay at the fair or the mall, kind of a ridiculous drawing, only we're doing it in writing. We're going to exaggerate things. You're using your imagination. So what does this person's face look like? And make their head very large, like a caricature. And then describe their body, very tiny. And there's something strange, absurd about their clothing or their jewelry. What's going on with it? Next question. Again, we're using our imagination, right? Exaggerate some feature on their face. You know how the caricature, big bulbous nose or whatever, a wart, you know, or crazy hair, but some feature. Which feature are you going to exaggerate? Okay, your reader demon, this person starts to say something to you about your writing. What's the first sentence or few sentences out of their mouths? What do they say to you about your writing? However, you know they have an ulterior motive, a secret reason for what they just said to you. What's their secret reason? And again, you're probably using your imagination. What's their secret reason? Then you look over at your reader demon, audience, ghost's shoulder, their right shoulder, and there's a tiny little person on that shoulder of your demon. This is a tiny person, someone who's bothered your demon about his or her writing. So who is, again, you're using your imagination, who is that little demon on your big demon's shoulder? And how did that little demon impact your reader demon's confidence or feelings about his or her writing? Okay, back to your demon. Your demon, the big one, not the little one. Your demon keeps talking to you about your writing. They don't want to shut up. What's the next thing they say to you about your writing? But as they say it, something strange happens to their own language. Something gets distorted, out of their control, unreasonable. What happens? they get really frustrated, what do they do? What makes you know they're frustrated? They keep trying to speak. They say something else to you. It comes out of their mouth. What does it say? But it also, that language goes out of their control. What's happening? What are they saying? What happens to their face, their gestures, their expressions as they become frustrated? Now, you get to put your reader demon in some sort of container. Litter boxes are very favorites with my students. But anyway, you decide. What kind of container do you want to put it in? There's something pretty darn icky, distasteful, ugly at the bottom of your container. What might it be? And then lastly, you get to do whatever you want with that container. What would you like to do with the container? Okay, so I hope you had fun with that. Let's talk about its purpose here. We were trying to, through our imagination and by writing, summon our audience ghosts. We have these conversations with imaginary readers and creatures all the time as we're writing. And again, it impacts both the quantity by which we produce and also our feelings and maybe even the quality, of course, of what we produce, right? So by doing this caricature, we're drawing them forward. And what you can do with the caricature is as follows, right? You can look at it and think to yourself, pick a facial feature. I'll model on one of my own caricatures in the past. My caricature had a old-fashioned coil burner like nose. You remember those? Probably way beyond your time, but these metal coils turn bright red and white. And so my audience demon is a Caucasian. So the nose turned white, then red, white, then red. And so what did that symbolize? I paused and I looked at it a little more critically. I thought, why did I give this person, by the way, my mentor, who I adore, but was on my mind for some reason as an audience demon, why did I make her have that burner coil nose that went red and white? What does it symbolize? And I realized I was afraid of her anger because at the time I had been asked to write a piece for publication on her, right? And I was worried unconsciously she'd be angry at something I wrote. And then maybe something else. I picked her clothing, and I'm the first one in my family to go to college, but my mentor is very blue blood, old family. And so she had an LL Bean, kind of a preppy little sweater with lots of boarding school decals all over it. And so I thought to myself, why did I dress her in such an absurd outfit? Because she doesn't look like that. And I realized it symbolized my fear of not being good enough, that we're of a different social class. And I didn't feel good enough inwardly to write this piece on her. So look at your own caricature. Can you see your unconscious poking out through some of the details that you manifested by making your reader demon visible in your writing, right? And just remember, do things when you're writing that gets you access to that wonderful vacancy from reader demons in the moment. Watching or breathing is a great way because it'll deter you from thinking about them. Noticing your physical spaces, changing the medium by which you write, scrap paper, junk paper, change your font, anything that gains you distance from tricky readers. As a poet and a creative writer, in the morning I use magic markers, my kids' magic markers, and $1 notebooks for my drafts, because I know those resources will never buy me time from an editor. I'll never send pink magic marker notebooks from the dollar store to an editor, right? So physically, I'm buying myself some time and space from tricky judges. So watch your reader demons. Okay, so we've talked about a lot, about mindful writing, and all of these things concern your own relationship to your writing. And again, that present moment just can be terrific because of its awareness of the audiences we import through our mindlessness, because it's a form of self-respect to give yourself that space and time to write and to think and to create. It also, mindfulness shows us how we're telling ourselves messages and preconceptions about our ability, and sends us signals of perfectionism if we're somebody who lugs around that stone backpack of perfectionism. And so I hope these strategies help you become more present for your own writing. I'm now going to stop the tape, and it's going to be a second video. And the second video is going to be devoted to becoming more present for your tutors, and the tutees, excuse me, the people that you work with in the tutoring sessions. So may every moment be a prolific moment for you personally as a writer. See you soon.